For the noise, that's noticeable.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the Town of McCandless agenda review meeting, September 17th, 2018. The first item of business is to review the tentative meeting agenda for next week's business meeting. Mrs. Powers will have the invocation. Then we'll vote to approve the minutes. There is a in the minutes there is an error under the land development. Under the CVEST, it said it was a unanimous vote, and it was one person abstained. So please put in that little abstention that was left out. Okay, but that's the only thing I saw. Did anyone else?
Just one typo, correct the spelling on Mr. Batai's name. Bodger, it was spelled Bodger, Batai instead of Roger. Just
B-O-G-E-R.
Huh.
Just a typo.
I remember circling that, huh, okay. Bodger, Bourget.
Proof that I read them. No, they were fine.
Bojay body.
Or at least one sentence.
At least that one sentence I read.
Is anything else about the minutes? Anything else need correction? Okay, and next will be announcements. And next will be after that will be a public hearing about the Barrow property. Then finance and personnel, list of bills. Acknowledgement of our minimal municipal obligation for the police. Then the zoning committee will accept a letter of resignation from our zoning hearing board.
How do you know?
Well, we'll move to accept it. He's moving away, so I guess we could keep him on the committee, but he won't be able to serve very well. We could force him to stay, I guess. Maybe not. Then public works, to award a contract. And then in the unfinished business, new business and public comment. Any questions? Or?
Quick comment from Mr. Rob, the per foot on an as requested basis, we're not committing that he's our guy necessarily. We want to have options open. There is a CoStar's contract available.
To do some of that other similar type work.
We may, what a couple of municipalities are doing is taking a test drive.
Okay.
Check.
Does anybody have any question about anything here? We can wait and talk about that next week. Okay. Anything else?
Did you say, Toby, they are using JetJack?
A couple of municipalities are trying to do that. Yeah, they're gonna not commit to them as
Okay.
their sole lining
They weren't
company.
real strong on it to begin with, right?
Right, there's questions about, they've met the minimum spec, so it's just a matter of, is that good enough? So if we really need somebody, we may take a small test drive of one, this would give us or an emergency, this would give us the opportunity to do that. Otherwise, I want to see a comparison between the cost of JetJack and the CoStar's bid, which I haven't seen yet.
And Toby, that COG spec does contemplate that possibility of just there's not a set defined project in the specifications, it's just, it can be done on an as-needed basis.
I saw that in the spec, and I thought it would make it clear in the motion as well,
Yeah.
so that JetJack doesn't think otherwise.
Are they aware of that we're using them on a trial basis?
Gavin was just saying that that's in the
Yeah.
spec that way, but I thought it would be best to reiterate that at the
Okay.
public meeting.
Anything else? Okay. Next, we will review the town's 5-year revenue and expense budget projections.
Me?
Commence to reviewing.
We did place an amended projection file in your folder this evening. I don't know if everybody saw that. There was an item that we had actually thought we would expend in 2017, and that was the Pine Creek Route 19, work on the signals in the lanes there, $749,000. We included in projected actual for 2017 when we prepared the 2018 budget. We weren't actually billed, and we don't expect to be billed in 2018 at this point either, so we added that to the 2019 projection. So we've got a 4-page spreadsheet for you along with the cover memo. We're looking at the spreadsheet. Page 1 shows revenue. We've got 3 years of actual there from 2015 through 2017. We've got the budget and our best guesstimate projected actual for 2018. And then we have projections for 2019 through 2023. Overall, for revenues, we expect growth at about 1.3% per year. Fairly modest growth. And that's assuming we continue operating the way we are, there are no changes to our tax rate or anything like that. Page 2 shows expenditures net of capital items. And we expect growth there to be about 2% per year, which is the rate of inflation. Page 3 then shows the capital purchases that come out of the general fund. And that basically follows our schedule for replacement of vehicles. Although we always try to get as much life as we can out of the vehicle, and before we take it out of service, we have it checked out by our garage to make sure it's ready. If we get another year, we do that. Also included on page 3 is the line item for transfers to our capital improvements fund. And for the town's policy, that is transfer to the capital improvements fund is excess over the 2 months average over the past 3 years of either revenue or expenditures, whichever is greater. So the bottom row on page 3 shows you that we maintain our fund balance at approximately 17% per year.
And that's the unassigned.
That's the unassigned, I'm
fund.
sorry, the
Yes,
unassigned.
that's okay.
balance. And then the last page shows our capital improvements fund. And at this time, we are showing a positive fund balance through 2023. And that includes our anticipated expenditure of about $1.9 million in 2023 for the culverts at Laser and Lindenberg. So if they're delayed any further, obviously that would change that number significantly as well. Are there any questions?
I had a question. It seems like there were some really big number changes in 18 with the actual on revenue and expenses, like -17%, -39%. What is that?
Okay.
It seems like they're big. -53%, and I know those are smaller sums, but what makes those such big changes?
Reach on page 1 to help you out there.
Yeah.
Real estate transfer tax, is that the 17.5%?
Well, I'm just looking at the big numbers, just wondering why, if it's negative, and I know you know how to guess these things, but if something is like -11%, and it was -17% 1 year, how can you know that it's gonna be 1% the next 5 years?
For that one, the realty transfer tax specifically, historically, it has averaged about 1.2 million per year.
Okay,
It's dependent totally on property sales in a given year. So some years it's higher, some years it's lower, but historically, it has been about 1.2 million a year.
We have not had as many sales of commercial property as we have had. We've had some big sales. We've had a couple of unusual years when you look at 2015, $1,460,000.
right.
And then it dropped, and then it went back up again to $1,354,000. But if we were to take and run these numbers back 10 more years, Regis' statement is absolutely accurate that it hovers around 1.1 to 1.2 million, just like.
So we
you
just
can
not
almost-
looking
yeah,
back far enough to see that?
Yeah, if
Okay.
you want to do a real long history, you can see that, but those two are a little bit more of an aberration.
No,
For intergovernmental revenue, that includes grants. In any given year, we may get a large grant, and so obviously we're gonna drop the next year because of that.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
So we do try to take into account the specifics of each line item.
I was looking also under capital improvements. Did I see AVHC in here? Because I think that may be something that's gonna be a big scary thing coming up pretty soon. Are we looking at that?
What was that?
Buildings and plant, 409.
Is it in there?
It would be, no.
It's not in
The
there?
HVAC.
Yeah.
HVAC is not.
The reason I talked about that was,
Until we get the results of the study that Tower Engineering is doing, we won't know what to expect.
Okay.
So that's underway right now. We just received a bill for 50% of the contracts.
Okay. Okay.
it was too much of a guess. We had no idea whether it could be 20,000 or 100,000.
I just wanted to make sure it was common, you
Yeah.
know. Did anyone else have any questions on, this is how Region and Toby look at our budget and try to figure out how the next 5 years are gonna go based on the last years. We can spend a lot of time looking at this, but it helps to start to get it, to warm, this is the appetizer for the budget.
Yes, and we will fine tune this as we go through the budget process because we'll have better projected actuals for 2018. And that'll give council a chance to look out in 5 years out and see if there are any changes that need to be made in the way we operate.
Madam President, one question for
Yes.
Reg. Reg, on the revenue projections, you said that 1.3% per year projection is a stable environment. Now, we've been growing through development over the last number of years. Is there any projected development growth in this budget?
My understanding is there's not a whole lot of land left to be developed in the town. So I think what we're gonna see in the real estate side is appeals for assessed values and the occasional 2 or 3 house plan that goes in or something like that, or somebody tears a building down and rebuilds.
I was thinking more of the significant redevelopment potential on Blazer Drive. I'm just asking the question, is there anything projected in here yet?
That's
okay if you
That's
didn't.
kind of included part and parcel to the 1 point, we project out real estate at 1%. You have to remember that the increased assessments that the school district gets,
Yes.
well, it seems like a lot of money generally for the town. An increased assessment is worth about anywhere from $10 to $60 per parcel or less.
No,
So
you're
it's
right. I was
pretty hard
thinking
to
more
add
in
that up.
terms of the business privilege tax and the associated things with
Yeah, the business privilege tax, we're expecting 2.5% growth.
Okay.
So we do expect some continued growth in that area.
2%.
2%, I'm sorry. But real estate and their income tax, we're not looking at.
It's a crystal ball, I just wanted
It
to
is.
clarify and understand
Sure.
your
You know,
assumptions.
Bill, I think if, whatever happens on Blazer Drive, we've seen this sketch that came out last week.
Mhm.
I mean, it's still sketch, and so, once, just like the HVAC point, if we start getting something, and if we have a handle on something that's gonna be significant, sure, that has to, if it's gonna have some impact, we'll do our best to project out, absolutely.
Super. Thanks.
We did hear some advanced news on a potential housing development for Minor Road.
Mhm.
Have you heard about, maybe you've heard
Yeah,
about
it was
that?
presented here,
Okay, yep, okay, so it's,
the
yeah.
planning commission right now.
But again, those are few and far between. There's a few parcels left like that one.
I have two questions, if I may, directed to Reg. On page 1 of 4, the line that says licenses, permits, fines, interest, and rent. What does that interest pertain to? That seems,
Interest?
yeah,
That's interest on our accounts and CDs,
okay.
checking accounts and CDs.
And then what's included within charges and fees, 2 lines below that?
That's our building permits, our,
Land development permits.
yeah, our charges for outside police detail, it's pretty much anything we're billing out.
Just some miscellaneous things that just get catched and put in that line.
Right. And those are things to an extent council has some control over. You don't control how many building permits are applied for, but you do control the rate you charge for that. So.
I understand, thank you.
On page 2, not of the charts, but under expenses, on number 2. Can you just tell me what that means?
Yeah, inflation is about 2% right now, and we had previously in our projections always used 3% as our number to be, try to be as conservative as we can be, but from what we can see, they're projecting 2% for the next couple of years, so it seemed reasonable to reduce that to 2. And even if inflation goes up, we certainly believe that by managing our expenditures, we can keep it 2%.
This is the budget eye, you asked us to get the budget eye on this.
That's what I was looking at. It
That's what
said
that means, our
we
goal of
show-
expense reduction, not service decreases.
Okay, all right, and it said we show a general decrease in our operating budget expenses from 3 to 2%.
Yeah, previously we've been using 3% for our projected increase each year, but we've reduced that to 2. That's
So
what that
it would
means.
be a 1% savings then, is that right?
We're projecting that 1% per year less will be spending this.
Okay. That's what.
We want to use that as an across-the-board goal, as we have the month now, between now and October 15th, and we'll be working hard at the actual next year's budget. To have when we discuss, do the final roundup with all the departments, so you know, the target is to reduce at least 1%.
Those were all my questions. Anyone else? Anything more? Okay, thank you. Liaison reports, planning commission.
The planning commission, you received at the October 10th meeting, September 10th meeting, their minutes, they include rezoning Barrel Chevrolet, Mill Mile Road, the housing development, Toby just referred to, the shooting range ordinance and the marijuana, medical marijuana ordinance. So that takes care of that. And with the zoning hearing board, they're currently hearing, they heard last month the get-go presentation. They presented their case, and I think they're going to present some further information. The get-go is going to be proposed on Route 19, near the next to Barrel Honda on the Wendy's site. And in fact, in back of the site is Little Meadow Road, runs right behind the site.
Do they have to go before planning commission one more time before they come to us? Is there any?
I don't think, I think they do with a land development plan.
Yeah,
Okay,
they will
okay.
have to go to planning commission. and-
Okay, all right, because we have the public hearing and then it has to go back and then come to us again.
There will not be a public hearing
Oh.
before council. There will just be the public hearing, or there's the public hearing before the zoning hearing board. And I
Yeah.
believe that, assuming they get what they need from the zoning hearing board, then they'll file their land development application, which I don't believe they've filed yet. Toby, I don't know if you know.
I don't think they have.
Okay.
And then that'll follow the normal course, planning commission, then on board to council.
Okay. Anything else, Greg?
No, that's all.
Okay, Bill, the sanitary authority?
As I reported previously, the authority is in the very early stages of undertaking a 15 to 30-year control plan for the Pine Creek treatment plant, which is located in Hampton Township, but services a large portion of McCandless. And this past month, the board began review of a design proposal for the first phase of that control plan. Also, I'll report that the DEP did, in fact, approve the 537 plan that was submitted. That happened approximately 2 months ago, and that was really the kickoff to begin looking at undertaking the design work. Nothing further at this time.
Okay. Okay, how about on the ambulance authority?
The ambulance authority did not meet last month. I have
Okay.
nothing to report.
Okay. All right, the public library.
We have a presentation by the Northland Public Library on Pennsylvania's newly approved Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, known as PACE, which is an innovative mechanism for financing energy efficiency and renewable energy improvements on commercial and nonprofit property. And tonight we have Amy Steele, who is our director of the library, who would like to speak to us and explain this to us. And Bob, I'm sorry, Bob, but I apologize.
Yeah, as Joanne mentioned, Bob Lukich is also here. He's our Director of Finance and Support Services at the library. And I believe you all have some basic information on this plan. This is actually a federal program that we had come across last year when we were exploring ways to finance our needed HVAC repairs, roof repairs, and our skylight repairs. So since we spoke with you last year about those repairs, we've been very busy looking at all kinds of alternatives, what we can do, how we want to do those projects, and then how we can finance them. And this was something that came up on our radar back in March, but at that time, the state of Pennsylvania had not ratified this, this program as a possibility for Pennsylvania residents. And since then, it was passed in Pennsylvania, and it's gone through its waiting period, and it actually became an active possibility and opportunity for us back, I think, on August 12th. Right? And so this plan is very innovative for us. It provides an opportunity for financing at a low interest rate and a long-term payback, which is key for these kinds of energy efficiency plan or improvements, because it will allow us to pay back the money that we borrow for the projects out of the energy savings that the project creates. So there's no additional ongoing operational payback. We can take that out of our energy costs that we will have saved. The difficult part with these energy savings and efficiency programs is there's a higher upfront cost. So usually you have to spend more upfront on these projects to reap the energy savings going forward. And a plan like this allows us really to capitalize and leverage those energy savings going forward. And the mechanism for this program, Northland would work with a lender to borrow the money that we need to fill the gap. We have, as we mentioned, we have some capital savings for our projects. We've also applied for a number of grants through the state. We're still waiting to hear on those. We're hoping in the next couple of weeks to get some feedback on that. But depending on where those come in, we still have a gap for that high upfront cost on these projects. But we would use this kind of a program to borrow money to fill that gap. And what we need from the municipality, the way this program works that allows the lenders to have comfort in that longer term payback period, is that the amount that we borrow, that would be assessed onto our property and become like a fee that's assessed onto the property that the library owns, and we would pay it as you would a property tax, that the municipality would be a pass-through. So you would bill us for that, and it would pass through back to the lender for the repayment of the loan. So Northland is the only one that's affected by this. We would be, repaying that loan. It's just a mechanism to get that money back to the lenders. They feel a little more confident with loaning that money because since it's assessed as a fee onto the property, it stays with the property even if it should change hands, which is not likely in the library's case, but for other commercial properties that might be the case. So they are kind of guaranteed that that money stays as a lien then on that property going forward. So that provides some security for the lender to allow the repayment schedule to take place over 15 to 20 years, which is really what helps us to keep those loan payments right within that sweet spot of our energy savings. So once we would have that paid off, then we would reap the benefits of those energy savings going forward.
I'm just curious, Amy, I don't want to throw a curve at you, but you said you work with a bank, but why couldn't you use the McCandless Industrial Development
I
Authority?
was just gonna ask
I
the
was
same
gonna ask the
thing.
We
same
have
thing.
had a meeting with them. They don't actually, as it was explained to us, they don't actually have the funds. They act as a conduit towards that bank. And when we discussed it with them, they said that they would be able to work with us on that, but they felt that we could also just as easily, because of this program, get the same kind of benefits working directly with a bank. So we're keeping those options open. We are talking to a couple of lenders, but they felt like there wasn't much more they could do on this project for us under this program than we could probably do directly ourselves.
If I
But
could-
we are
if I could-
talking with them. We
If
met
I
with-
could add, I'm sorry, I thought you
Yeah.
were finishing, please continue.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we did meet with Roger Cray and Dean Richardson to discuss
Yeah,
this with them.
Dean's the counsel for the MIDA. The MIDA, as a general proposition, is a statutory vehicle set up to allow people who otherwise would be charged a higher interest rate, a lower interest rate. It sounds to me like you've already reached that goal by using this other vehicle.
Right.
But certainly with the people you're talking to, they'll be able to assess whether there's an opportunity that would be available through the MIDA that wouldn't be available through the other program.
And we will explore all options. We definitely are committed to doing that, to find out what's the best option out there for us. So as part of this national program, each state has to ratify and decide to pass statutes to participate in it. And then the entity that will be doing that assessment onto the property must also pass an ordinance to agree to participate in this. And this can be done at the municipal level, which is why we're here tonight. There's also an option at the county level. A county could also agree to act as that pass-through entity and agree to process the administration that goes along with assessing those fees. So that's why we're here asking if McCandless would be willing to consider participating in this. As I said, it is a brand-new program. It has just become available here in Pennsylvania. We would kind of be, I think, leaders in the state if we jump onto this very quickly, and this would make this option available for commercial property owners and nonprofit owners in McCandless. There is a residential component to the national program, but Pennsylvania did not approve the residential piece at this time.
Would the other municipalities be involved in this also, or just McCandless?
Because the library is physically located in McCandless, we would only need, because it's associated with the property, so
I
only
see.
McCandless
Okay.
would need to be involved with that as far as the library goes.
So exactly what is McCandless's role? I don't, pass-through, it sounded kind of vague to me. I don't know what that means. Are we a guarantor on this, loan, or?
No, because that gets assessed onto the property.
I don't know what that means.
itself. It's like a lien on the property.
Okay.
A mortgage?
It's like a mortgage, okay.
In a way, to a fashion, it's the way it's assessed as a fee on the property. It's just a way for McCandless to bill us for the repayment, and McCandless would collect that from the library and then pass it on to the lender.
Amy, does
It's
that,
just a billing mechanism,
Yeah.
if
Okay.
you will, so there would be some administration,
Is it a problem for us to add that on to what we're doing? Okay.
is that first bullet point on the colored page, is that what that's speaking to?
yes.
Pays financing is repaid as an assessment on the
Yes.
properties, the borrower's property, regular tax bill, et cetera.
So And in Pennsylvania, they did specifically write into the statute to include nonprofits in that as well. Technically, we don't have a property tax that we pay since we are a nonprofit, but the Pennsylvania statute does allow this mechanism to be used for nonprofit.
The library doesn't own the property it's on.
We do.
I thought that was the school's property. And
We have a deed that it is our property. There is a clause on the deed that states if the property ceases to be used as a public library for Northland Library, then it reverts back to the school district.
I was just wondering how you were taking a loan out on property that
No,
wasn't yours.
We do own,
Okay.
we have
Okay.
a paper copy
Okay.
of the deed. If
Okay.
you look it up on the Allegheny County Real Estate,
Okay.
it says Northland owns the
Okay.
property.
I'm just trying to understand, it's a
Absolutely.
little complex.
It is.
Really.
It is, it's a creative way to be able to do this. We've done the projections out on the HVAC that we would like to do that's much more energy efficient. And over time, it more than pays for itself. So we would repay all of this before we would need to replace the new system. So then we're just reaping those benefits, those energy savings going out into the future. So we're really trying to be forward thinking on this.
Good, I think that's being proactive is excellent, and
And
this is a great way to do
The
that.
advantage is other commercial properties in McCandless could use this same kind of vehicle, and you all could become known as the leaders for supporting this kind of energy efficiency.
Cutting edge. We may use this for our own, yeah,
Sustainability.
we may have
credit.
to look at this for our own ADHD. A couple more questions, I'm sorry. The library will run the program? It said in here about who could run it, the municipality or the property owner, so you all will be running the program?
We would set up between the lender, and we would do all of that on
Okay.
our own, whether it's through MIDA or directly with the bank. But McCandless has to actually place the assessments and do that billing. Now, there is an option that there can be a state program, that the state would create sort of a statewide administrative group that would run these programs across the state, but because this is so new, they don't yet have that in place. We were talking, I spoke to someone earlier this week,
No, yeah, this morning, it said it's a couple months ago.
probably a couple of months away until there's that state program.
Reese, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that as far as our administration, at the beginning of each quarter, we send a quarterly contribution to the library.
Right,
So we talked about, when we send that quarterly contribution, simply withholding those 3 months' worth of payments to the bank, and then just do an automated transfer each month to the bank, so there's very little on our end that we have to worry about.
that sounds
That's
like a
good.
great idea.
That's-
So we have a mechanism like that where the fire companies pay us back on our loans from our fire apparatus fund, so we're equipped to
Okay.
handle
So
it.
it wouldn't add a major
No,
amount of
no,
work.
we're glad to help. I mean, it really, I'd say nominal staff time.
There were just several things in here that I saw, like someone will post notices. Is that something that we're
I think they
doing,
would,
that you're
I
doing?
think you ought to do that. I mean, unless it says specifically that we have to, but we can
No,
work
it
on
just says someone will. I'm just
I
trying to
think
see
it's
what we're getting into when
more
we're,
from
you,
your
Goodness.
side
Yeah, the
of it
municipality
for-
posted notice.
for
Right
oh, we
others,
post a notice?
So
Okay,
that others would know that this program is available.
okay, all right.
I
Yeah,
see- I
there's
see
a,
what
there's a
you're
lot of lack of detail of something.
Well, that's, I was looking at
There's
Because
a
it's
lot
so
of,
new.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's
okay.
not a lot of detail in here. There is gonna be, I mean, in order for the town to do this, you'd have to pass an ordinance, you'd have to define and get a legal description of an area within the town where you want this program to be, so whether it's just library property, whether you wanna designate other areas within the town. You also establish criteria for eligibility to participate in this program, so, I mean, there's a little more to it,
Okay.
to actually get this thing up and running than just kind of waving a wand or passing a simple ordinance. I mean, and I'm not saying it's not doable,
Right,
but, I mean, especially since it has not been done, this is a classic thing where, all right, someone's done this somewhere else in Pennsylvania, and we can just at least have a framework for us. And I know this has been done in other states,
Right.
and I thought maybe one thing, if the council does wanna look into this, is maybe we could get our hands on some legislation that has been passed in other states to just see how this has been done and, you know, really how much is gonna be involved. Because it's just not, it's not really clear, even the simple part about only a municipality with a community or economic development department may enact this.
Right.
I mean, we represent a lot of municipalities, I don't know that any of them actually have a separate department for that, so I don't know if that's superfluous language and they need all municipalities, or, I mean, as you know, the county has its own Department of Community Economic Development, so maybe the idea was, hey, the counties are probably gonna run with this, since they have, you know, more administrative power, more, you know, obviously a broader reach over the entire county, so it may make sense to do a countywide program as opposed to a local program. And I know timing is your reason why you don't wanna wait to see how that plays out, but these are just considerations I think council needs to take into account, just because there's just, you know, again, the devil being in the details on these things, it's not clear how it would really operate.
Right, well, thank you, that's why I was looking, I'm like, I see all these little details, but it wasn't clear.
And that's
how
what I
everything
think
was
that
going.
statewide program is going to address some of that and have those steps laid out for the municipalities. Again, that's part of, you know, if you wanna be in there playing first, sometimes we have to, you know, we may have to wade through some of that, but,
As to the building part, that's the easy part, as far as I'm concerned, the is concerned.
and it, you know, it mentions the eligibility and showing, that the projects comply with, national energy efficiency standards. A lot of that information, since this has already been enacted in a number of states, that is available, you know, out there as part of the national program that Pennsylvania can draw from that.
My other question is also, you're saying that others can use this if we decide to do this. Do we have to be specific and name those particular places, or is it a general?
You need to specifically identify the areas within the town and include a legal description. So, you know, if you saw a portion of some C5 district, it made a lot of sense to have this sort of incentive. Then you would add that to the ordinance, have gateway engineers, you know, prepare a legal description, and that would be part of it. And then just wherever in the town you think you want to encourage these types of investments and participation in this program, the ordinance could include and
So you're
designate
just
those
saying
areas.
the area, you don't have to name a specific?
Correct.
Okay.
But if a nonprofit met those qualifications, then we would have to do this?
If they meet the eligibility requirements, which you'd also have to develop. So is it just any nonprofit? Is it any commercial business? Is it of a certain size? I mean, I just, not being familiar with these programs, I'm not sure, you know, what criteria are out there that would make sense for something like this, but that's why it's, you know, there's just a lot to kind of get into
So
So
here.
we need more information.
Yeah.
Is there some time restraint or some kind of, I know you need a new one, I know, but it sounds like this is gonna take some time. Is anything going on at the county level at all?
Not that we're aware of at the
Okay,
county
okay.
level.
Has your solicitor looked at the details of the, like, the implementation?
That he's taken a look at that yet, but we can certainly have him, you know, look at it too and see what we can do to help you with those details, and we'll continue to call, you know, at the state level to find out.
Maybe
You
he
know, I
could
think
give us-
sometimes they pass some of these statutes, and then it's not until the first few are going through it.
Yeah, the state DCED will often, you know, after this has been around for a couple months, we'll try to put together some guidelines and some recommendations and even some template documents to help people out. But, you know, with it only being about 5 weeks old, none of that's available quite yet.
We have a little bit of time on it, but, you know, some of that too will depend on the grant money. And, you know, once we hear from that, what we're getting, what the terms are for the grants, what our timeline is on our projects.
And how long your equipment lasts?
Has anyone discussed the possibility of a living green style roof when you get involved in this?
We haven't looked at the living roof. We've been looking at, a general high efficiency HVAC system, followed by reducing the energy needs in the building. One of the projects we're doing at the same time is the roof, so we're also looking at increased insulation on the roof. The idea is if we can take down that energy consumption to, you know, a much smaller number than what we're using right now, We have talked about using solar panels on the roof to offset that last piece of energy usage, if we can get that down small enough. Right now, our energy needs are high enough that we don't have enough roof space for the solar panels to offset that. But the goal would be to reduce those energy needs, and then we would have enough space on the roof. We've been looking at solar rather than the green roof.
I understand that some of the green roof will actually, it does both, but in particular, even though it does a little bit with heat, it does a lot more for cooling. The cooling costs once you have some grasses and wildflowers and soil up there, if that's, if there's room for a little bit of it.
And if we can hold the weight on it.
Right, that's the
That's
main question, is
structural-
what the roof is capable of.
Just one quick question on we haven't explicitly said so, but just from my brief reading of this earlier, the Senate bill that's attached to the materials, 234, that explains in some detail some of the items that Gavin had mentioned,
With
right?
some of those requirements,
Yeah.
but not a lot of the details.
Yeah, but even there, it's not, there's just, where do you find the rest of the information on this? Is there?
I mean, there is none, it's up to,
Start noodling around.
probably the state again, that's why, I think this is something the state DCED will probably jump on,
Yeah.
because anyone who's thinking about this project is probably calling them saying, yeah, I'm looking at Act 30 here, and I have some questions, and I think they get a few of those calls, and they'll get the idea that they need to jump out and get ahead of this thing, and help people put these programs together.
So maybe the questions will give them some guidelines.
Right. And, their interpretations of these regulations may, help us all kind of understand what was meant. Because sometimes the General Assembly enacts a law, and maybe some of the even Assembly doesn't exactly know what they're planning on doing with it, so.
My final comment is I think, and you mentioned it, I think you ought to be interfacing, and I think you are from what you said with the MIDA, their council, so that we, as quickly as possible, decide which direction we should be going. Right.
Any other questions? Thank you. North Hills Council of Government, Steve?
Nothing of any value to report unless Toby has anything to say.
The comment you made about the extra money that the county had been awarded from the federal government, about $1 million. I checked on that immediately, and it went to communities that had been rejected or maybe had been given a smaller amount of funding, and it went to them first rather than a new application.
I kind of thought we might be a little bit out of the realm, but it didn't hurt to try.
But we scoured, I had a meeting with our engineer, Bruce Betty, and Mark Sabina, and we scoured looking for any potential projects which might position us for next year's grants. We had a phone meeting with the COG director, Wayne Roll, and he gave us some ideas for the subsequent grant cycle.
Joint Rec Board, shouldn't have anything on that. It's over till next summer, right? Steve?
Yeah, there won't be anything at all for 7 or 8 months.
Okay. MIDA, Bill, anything? No?
Nothing, other than what we just talked.
Right. Volunteer Firefighters Steering Committee, Carolyn?
We are currently trying to set up a meeting for next, hopefully either October or November. Did you give dates?
Okay.
Didn't get the,
Okay.
around the
Okay. North Pittsburgh Community Development Corporation.
Nothing.
Okay.
There's very little activity with that. And
Okay. The Heritage Center.
As I reported last week, we are working on the activities, which we're trying to have at least one a month. And they're also working on the wording for the policy to use for the center. Remember that they had brought us the written up policy, and we had questions, so they've gone back and they're reworking it. And once they get it finished, we'll bring it back to us.
Okay. All right. Community Day Committee.
So we had a quick meeting last week to discuss rescheduling, and that has been scheduled for October 20th, 1 to 7:15. Is there gonna be something on Sunday though, 21st?
Sunday is the rain date. Pirate Technico advised that, when the phone discussion we had, that it would be prudent to have a rain date picked at least for the fireworks display. So if by some chance we have another washout, we would have simply regroup with the fireworks display at 7:15 on Sunday night. And I had that confirmed by them today, so that when we do the rest of our advertising, promoting, we'll make sure people know that if it's a wash on Saturday, then at least on Sunday, stay tuned for the fireworks.
And the fireworks will be at 7:15.
7:15,
Okay.
yeah.
Same
And-
location.
And if I may, question, suggestion, thoughts? We talked a little bit about allowing people to have their booths free of charge this time. And my thought was, what are you thinking of maybe putting that on our website?
Sure, I think we did.
How many booths do we have left, do you know?
There are 32 booths from St. Alexis. 5 of them were damaged in the storm. We'll fix those. That's part of the deal with St. Alexis. Those 5 will be used by the town, so we'll have 27, maybe 25 left over for the public. And the company that we contract out with for the other booths, the metal ones that are still out there, were kind enough to offer to Mark Sabina that for $5 per booth, which is 30 of them, it's only $150. They will leave them here. They took back their tarps because of the hurricane activity, the leftover hurricane activity. So we're gonna move those over, and basketball court, hopefully just one tennis court so people can play tennis for the next month. And so for $5 more, we'll have another 30 booths ready. So it's first come, first served, and
How many booths do we have available?
we'll have 55.
Okay.
And how many, or who are they contacting?
They're contacting John and Marie.
John and Marie.
We have posted,
Town hall.
we started posting at Town Hall. And so we've encouraged people to bring their own, and a lot of people did. In fact, for the actual community day, almost a third of each of those categories, was a third of the people that were gonna bring their own booth, a third were gonna use the St. Alexis booths, and a booth, and a third were gonna use the rental
And if
booths.
you want one, there's a form, there's the form, I talked to Phil at one today, there's a form similar to the first time around, you gotta,
Do you know, you probably don't know off the top of your head, but do you have any idea of how many booths are already spoken for?
No, but all I can say is something rough, like a number of people have called in. Some people have actually said, I don't want a refund, we intend to refund the money. It's just fair, I mean, our policy was, they cancel, before 7 days, they get their money back. And if they cancel within 7, they don't. But for us to cancel on them, it's only fair that they get their money back.
So you're saying it is on our website? then?
Yes, and people, I don't know how many calls Marie has had, but she said it was enough to say, wow, the people are really coming to do
Good.
this.
Good,
we should
okay.
tell them to keep our money. I
What about
guess.
the rides?
The rides still haven't booked with us, but that's because they have, the month of October, they sometimes get a last-minute opportunity for some of their weekends to have a whole display. As they have a current client. If that client doesn't come through, they're willing to come back.
Okay.
It's still out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anything else on that? Okay. The Environmental Advisory Committee, and Steve attended, I was out of town.
We talked about a few things. I was kind of particularly excited about they don't want to call it a garden club, but they want to create a potential pilot project for a McCandless Botanical Society or something. They also asked me to make sure to mention the desire to have delivered rubbish ended. Things like telephone books, newspapers, signs put in the corners, signs on telephone poles, but things that are purposefully delivered to people's houses that they don't necessarily want. And I notice on here that it does not say, they discussed a little bit about potentially using local people or businesses to take care of certain town properties. You know, if we have a corner lot of 3,000 feet that we own, you know, maybe a company would like to mow that, maintain it, or plant it, or even add a garden bench, or I guess if they're really well off, a gazebo or a waterfall or something. But I notice that's not in the minutes.
So we contacted the garden clubs, the local garden clubs, none of which are exclusive to just McCandless. They're kind of all over. And they seem to be pretty busy. Now, we're waiting for final word from one last one. So what Steve was saying is, so we were talking about, we have a lot of gardeners here that are possibly interested in forming our own other.
To put a garden in? I'm not
A
understanding.
Well-
McCandless garden club, but
Yeah.
they're saying garden clubs are kind of like going on the wayside, you know, rename or
gardeners.
regroup, right, as a botanical society or whatever,
It doesn't matter what you call them.
right?
Right.
The
Yeah,
point
that's-
would be, remember we were talking about the frontage out
Right,
here?
right.
So this group, and we'd have to figure all this out, we don't have any details, you're just getting the idea. I just wonder what you think about it, is it would be a group of gardeners, and it would be kind of a little branch of the EAC, I guess, could probably, help, you know, get that going.
Organize it.
Right, and say if there are 10 people who say, yes, I'm interested in helping maintain this out here in the front of the
So
town.
they just float around in the
Well,
town.
it depends, it depends. We would decide that. We would decide, would a group of people just be for this area, or would a group of people, would it be a dynamic group that people, you know, waxed and waned, and they did other things? We don't have other things yet, but if there were other things, what those things would be and what they would do, it's very,
Loose.
it's very loose right now, but I wanted to know what you thought about that. And it wouldn't be like an appointed committee or anything, it would be just like a volunteer group, kinda like cleanup day is, and they would come and, you know, we'd probably have, the EAC would say, this would be what, you know,
Needs to be
do
done.
it right, and then they would be given the leeway by their expertise to maybe do some of that. Now, this other thing Steve was talking about, that you'll see where, a bank has a corner that's a median, it's not associated with the bank, it's not their property, but they'll plant flowers there and then put a little sign there, you know, so that they planted flowers there. And that if we have some of those properties, could we put out to some local businesses, would they be interested in making and beautifying that median and being responsible for it?
Some, do you know what group, they're very active and they do a real nice job. Opposite the dam on Babcock Boulevard, they're right by the cannon. There's extensive gardens are put in.
We
every
talked to
year.
them.
Are they, who's doing that, do you know?
That's the Master Gardener's pit, but
Okay.
that's mainly who they are, but it's
Yeah.
just a big group of Master Gardeners. So I'm hoping we could draw on some of them.
There's a garden club right there in Ingomar, you know, where all the
Ingomar
reds
Garden
come
Club, we
together.
talked to them
Yep,
also.
We've talked, there are
Kay
three.
Walmsley
And we've
was
talked
about-
involved in that.
We've talked, yeah. Yeah. So what do you think about that?
I
Sounds
certainly
like a
love it.
nice idea. I like it.
Okay, good, all right, so, all right, good.
I
All right,
might
good.
add, there's a couple of places, I believe in my neighborhood, in fact, I'm sure that's true, the corners going into the various streets are decorated, and that property is owned by the owners of the lot that's in question, in other words, if it's a corner. And they, you know, they've actually, over the years, put up, stone walls and the neighborhood pays to have that redone every year. It's an amazing amount of cooperation with no real legal basis for doing it, you know?
And it looks real nice.
Yeah, it looks, they always keep it nice.
Yeah.
That's in everybody's mutual interest.
Sometimes there are beautification things that you can do for a town that don't cost anything, that people enjoy doing, giving back. You know, everyone who comes to apply for all of our boards and commissions and everything are always, I wanna give back, I wanna give back. Well, this may be someone who doesn't wanna do a border, you know, says, I'm a gardener, I would like to do this. This spot down here bothers me, I would like to make it better. So, good, well, we'll move forward with that. It's also close to tree planting season, so everyone who are planting your trees, please record that on the website, so we can get credit for that for our municipal
So I
project.
saw something written that you guys had written, and I can't, what was that in? There was a list of everybody who's planted a tree,
Right.
and,
Tree Vitalize.
yeah, what was it?
No, no.
What book was that in? Was that in the community? handbook?
It's been everywhere.
We have a lot of
But how large a tree has to be planted?
Doesn't.
seedling,
Okay,
seedling's fine.
the idea is to have something that's actually gonna be sustaining, yeah.
You're gonna have to get busy, Bill. I got 14.
I saw that
Yeah,
you really are,
14.
you're leading the charge. I can catch up.
I put all mine in the year before.
Well, keep going, you got
I
more.
think I put 18 fruit trees in my yard last
It
year.
was this year. You
No.
I have like 50 in the front yard.
Just
I don't know
said
what
on
else to
television.
do.
July.
Oh, sorry, I forgot we're being televised.
Self-monitoring.
We. All right, anything else from that?
That was the main bulk of it. I mean, there's
Okay, yeah.
appointments and stuff that probably no one cares about.
Okay. Personnel board, Carolyn.
Nothing to report right now.
Okay, President's, report and correspondence. Couple of things, as well as tree planting. It's also the time to put in your application for the town's committees, and that is through October 12th. So you can do that, either come down to the town and fill out a hard copy, or you can do it online on our website. And we have, I think, 9 positions, is it 9? 9?
Yes.
Nine positions available. Okay. Secondly, I would like to thank Mr. Nelson for pointing out to the town that we did not publish our redistricting resolution that was adopted. Going forward, the town, all town and council business and decisions will definitely be published. Also, on this resolution, there were a list of legislatures and attorney generals, lieutenant governors, that we were to send letters to, and all those letters have been sent. And we will be, well, I will ask what you all think, but my opinion is that any action that this council takes should be publicized. It is news. And so I would like to start with this, since this was overlooked, and get that out in Facebook page or whatever. And this was the gerrymandering, redistricting resolution.
I still have a question. Who would be doing this,
Who would be doing what?
the redistricting?
Oh, not us.
Oh, I know not us, but I'm saying, how would those people be selected? That was not answered for me
Right.
at the last meeting.
Right, and I do not have the ins and outs, all I have is what you have, the same thing. And this was, what this was to support an amendment for Pennsylvania that would create a redistricting commission. So I don't know that all those details are even out, but that's what
It
we
doesn't-
do about.
Even if that's sort of a talk piece proposal, but that still would have to be, I think, adopted by the legislature to take legislative form, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It would. Okay. So, when do we take comments at the end? Public comment at the end?
Each category.
Okay, all right, so I kind of blew right through the liaison part, so I apologize to that. So I have a couple more president's reports thing, and then we'll take comments, so I apologize for that. If I don't write it down, I can't remember it. Also, the other thing I wanted to talk about too is we talked about a volunteer appreciation dinner for all the people that are on our boards and commissions and things like that. And apparently the going price for a dinner is $30 a person, and that's not alcohol or anything, that would be with a cash bar. So what do you all think about that? You kind of like the idea of a volunteer appreciation dinner, but you wanted to know about costs, and that's about the two places in McCandless that we,
The town would pay for this?
yes, it would be an appreciation dinner. You know how the fire department does an appreciation dinner for the fire? Okay, that's what this would be. It would,
Do you have any guesses of how many attendees you have?
how many committee people we have?
You know, I didn't count, but I got a half decent count that I recall from when we did our training, sensitivity training, about 50 people.
Okay. What's 50 times 30?
1,500.
1,500.
Where did you get the pricing from?
That is an average of the prices of the Holy Trinity and the Chadwick. Prices that we have
And the
paid.
what was the second one?
Prices we've either. Chadwick, we've either paid or been quoted in the last 2 years.
And the other one's at the Great Church.
Yeah,
Right.
it was the,
I
both
think
of them
it's a
are
good idea to do
around
that.
$30. Yeah.
Give people some recognition. And I think if the price is around $1,500, $2,000, that's within I think, a reasonable amount to spend for such a
Will
venture.
we have some sort of door prizes or?
Well, we can talk about that and see, you know, what kind of format that we want to take. But the other thing that's really nice about this is, I've been at other places that did this, is it is a great networking time. You know, you mix it up and you have people sit at tables that aren't with the people in their committee, so they get to meet other people in the town. You really make a lot of good connections with other committees. It's a very nice,
So don't fill up all our time with speeches.
no speeches. The format that we did is the chair of each committee would stand up and they had 2 minutes to say, the people of the committee stand up, and they'd name them, and they'd say, this is what we do. And this was the big thing we did this year, and that's it. And so it was short, but it was informative also too. And if people had served for years, you know, for a long time, sometimes they would have a recognition for them or something like that. Should we move forward with this?
Good
Bill?
with me, yes.
Okay.
How about if we send an email out, starting with town council then, for a very good time to have these kinds of things are January and February.
Yeah,
Just
best prices.
pricing,
Mhm.
usually more availability, so now would be the time to start seeing if either of those places have availability, and we'll look at your schedule and go from there.
Okay. I also received an email from the Flag Factory, which is a local business, and they have been asked by the McCandless Crossing administration, I guess, to display a town flag on the newly erected flagpoles. I don't see a downside on this.
That's great.
They
It's
just-
not gonna
they-
cost
they-
us anything,
no,
they just want a
They're
flag.
they're gonna
to
pay
fly.
for it.
Yeah.
Oh, they're paying for it.
Oh, we don't
Yeah.
even pay for it.
No,
They
they-
just, I wanted to, you know, wanted to
Just
make sure somebody was like, going, no flag.
It's your flag, it's the town's flag,
It's a
so
tax
just
flag, sounds fine.
quick permission is
Okay.
all.
What are the
they-
flags up there? The US flag, they have the state flag up there too?
Probably.
And the
PA.
town, US, state, and town.
Yeah.
It's kinda cool that we have our own
How
flag,
could you be opposed to that?
right? It's just,
Well, sometimes you just don't know.
just rather
You
than
know,
have
you
the
just
town
gotta-
flag flying, where'd that come
You
from,
know,
so now
that's
you-
my
now you
supplier
know.
for that organization I belong to, the Flag Factory. They're located up on 88. And every year I buy many gross of little small flags to give to the kids.
Are they McCandless flags?
No, the US flags. I don't go
Man,
that far.
You're missing out.
Not good, not good.
that's right.
It's a national organization.
Okay.
Small
My
world,
list
isn't
to
it?
do, so contact them. Okay, now the last thing is, it seemed to me, and make sure that I'm correct on this, is that we pretty much agreed on public partners for our search firm. I'm getting lots of nods, okay, good. So, since we agreed on them, I said to Toby, let's give them 5 days to give us a proposal. You know, we're trying to move forward. And they said, yeah, they can give it to us by Friday, a proposal, you know, what they're gonna charge, what they'll do, that kind of stuff. So when that comes in, tell me what you think about this, is we'll send that out to everybody to look over it. And then we can decide to either talk about it in executive session or say, yes, we all like it and move forward. I don't know that it would require a vote. If it requires some discussion, we can do that, you know, executive session or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you would need to vote if you're gonna approve the it's essentially a contract, so you need to vote on it.
We do need to vote on it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Is that something that we would need to discuss in executive session? Because it's just the,
No, as a matter of fact, you can't discuss the engagement of that company in executive session, I
Oh.
would say. But I mean, anything related to the search itself.
Oh, the
so-
search itself.
But you're talking about, you know, the contract you're considering, whether it's this search firm or that search firm, that's all
Okay.
public.
okay, all right.
I spoke to Franklin Park and Marshall, and that's who they use also.
Yeah, they seem to specialize in
Yeah.
that and have a specialty.
They said
And
they
kind of
were the
know
best.
the market pretty well.
Right.
So, does that sound okay with everybody? So we'll, hear back from them, then we'll look at it, and then should we discuss it on Monday then?
I would suggest that if we get this thing, as soon as we get it out to council. If there's any council member that has a problem, let me and perhaps Gavin know, and see if we can get it rectified, and then you can have a good, robust discussion Monday night under a new business, and if you're satisfied, you can vote on Monday night on new business.
Make sure they have someone here to answer questions.
Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Would that be the 24th, then we vote on the 24th, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir, that would be.
Week
the
from
real-
today.
Yeah, if we could get this
Public meeting.
done, that'd be great.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's all I have. Okay, so let's do public comment on everything so far we've talked about tonight, since I missed it every time. Anyone have any public comment?
I just had one quick question.
Will you
that,
please come to the microphone, sir,
Yeah.
and say your name?
It's
I
fine.
am Mr. Nelson that you mentioned earlier. And I just have one quick question, and that is, when were the letters sent?
My administrative assistant thought that she had sent them out in May. She had done all the research, and I looked with the file. After the meeting, after you spoke, she and I both went through the files, and they had not been sent, so they were sent immediately after.
When is immediately, just a
Yeah,
date?
immediately after you spoke, it was within a day or two after. She had to put all the addresses together.
You mean the last town council meeting?
Yes,
Well, by that time, of course, as you probably realize, the issue was dead.
but it's.
In the water.
But it's there for posterity. There was a very narrow window at that time. You're right, the legislature did not act on it at that time,
Oh, that's right. I mean,
but it's an
the
issue.
point
that-
was, after the council voted for the resolution, the letters were to be written and sent.
Yeah.
And it's not like it was a week late, it was months late. So, and effectively, the whole thing was,
Not quite.
Yeah.
Ms. Broughton, Sue Broughton, who was the prime speaker about this,
Mhm.
the next day sent us an email that she had sent it after the council had approved voted to approve sending the information to those folks. It was sent to a key person. It was one person that, I forget the name of the group that it goes, there's the action committee that is working on this. There's a not-for-profit entity that was working on this. Sue Broughton emailed that information the next day to them, after the council voted back in whatever it was, April or May.
emailed it to who? I'm sorry, I'm not.
She emailed it to the committee. There's a group that is sponsoring this activity.
Oh, okay.
So they knew, they have known, and they may have even, she wasn't sure if they had circulated it to anybody. But we checked our files, and that's what we could find. We found the email
Well, I
from
think
her.
the point, quite honestly, I don't wanna run on this on and on about this, but, I think the point was is that, you were supposed to send the letters.
Right, that's
Yep.
right.
Yeah, but it should have been done then, not months later.
I can offer you I voted for that, right? I voted for that. I did
Four
support
people
that.
vo- four
Yes,
people
yes, we
voted for
did.
that.
Yep.
But what I want to tell you is I want to offer you my apology because mistakes do happen. I do not believe there was any intent for that. It should have been sent, absolutely no question. And you have my apology. I'm very sorry that did not happen.
Well,
And mine, since I
being a
thought that
member
was done.
of fair districts, one of the things that we work very hard at is being nonpartisan. And I have done my darndest to be as nonpartisan and be as fair in my presentations before this group as I possibly could be. I think for people, and even those who didn't, who voted against it, who might want to have their opposition noted. I don't know, if I was you, I'd be wondering what happened. I just would be.
I said what
I
happened,
leave this
sir.
to you,
I did
I
say
leave
what
this for
happened.
you to make your own decisions and your own conclusions about it. For my own part, I couldn't begin to tell you how disappointed I am, the way this was handled. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comment? Town managers report?
Couple things to point out. Even though the stream bank permits are, fortunately, we were able to identify the stream bank permits as split into segments for the Highland Valley. The County Conservation District was kind enough to do that. But they still have our permit application, and we have to keep prodding them to see when that's gonna be released. We really would like to get that work done this fall.
They haven't given any dates to start.
Fortunately, we do have the date for, we have the Iroquois Avenue Storm Sewer Program. Easements are signed. They have been sent to Tucker, Aaronsburg for recording. And that work can be done by our Public Works Department very soon then. And the county does have as far as item D on 4D, has our design and cost, and they've had it now for several days, and I'll be after them to see where they stand. We'd like to get an answer from them. We're not asking them for too much, I don't think, just to split the costs of our contractor and our out-of-pocket costs for the contractor and materials. The rest of that design work is progressing well. Trolley Court Basin work has begun. It'll be slowed down a little bit with the rain again that we've had, but they'll keep after that. And the Harmony Drive work, those are all very important because of that area having sustained significant flooding, and we're doing our level best here to get after that. So we're doing what I say in my report. We've had to dig test pits to see how deep the utilities are up there, because some of them are pretty shallow and some of them are pretty significant gas and water lines. Another item to point out is the gateway signs. We've been carrying this in our budget for several years, and we were getting non-answers and basically no answer from PennDOT. We finally, I started making phone calls myself to PennDOT, and we have a definitive answer that they will categorically not permit a permanent gateway sign in their rights of way unless it's all they'll permit is a sign on posts. And if we want to do that, when this suggestion came up by town councils probably 4 or 5 years ago, was to have a more substantial looking sign and something on a post. Like it could have 2 posts, 2 signposts, not just a singular signpost. You could have 2 posts. PennDOT will allow that, and they have to be breakaway posts in case somebody were to hit them. So we're going to confirm where a gateway sign can go on, so that it doesn't overlap the PennDOT right-of-way on North Meadows Drive. And that is pretty easy for us to do. I had a thought that if we want to pursue this and we want to build, well, the idea is to have use brick, the same color brick that we have left over. We have some brick left over from this building and the addition and the Public Works addition that was put on. To build the signs out of brick, have a solar light to light. That's the sign to show that it says Town of McCandless. It shows that it's a kind of community we are, a community that we are, a quality community. It's going to look good. So if we want to do that, I had a couple of ideas on the southern end of town, either in the right-of-way where the whole Carolyn is being fixed finally. We would
Did they
not budge.
replace the actual
There-
piping?
Yeah,
Okay.
and they, that's another matter I wanted to bring up. I did not put in my report in writing. But somewhere on that hillside, perhaps we could put a sign. with the permission of that property owner, or on the Vincentian property. The one thing we pursued with Vincentian, if we put a sign there, the Vincentian folks would like to have their name on the sign as well, so it kind of defeats the purpose, unless they've changed their mind about that. But,
Can it be the sign with a sign directly underneath it that has their name on it?
good?
Let's see what we can do. I think if we start that could be a slippery slope.
Where do you end? How many of these, I don't mean numerically how many, but do you contemplate every venue, every road that is coming from, say, Hampton into McCandless would have a sign?
No, we have those boundary marking signs, which I've always thought were adequate. For years we've had.
Like up and down Babcock, for
Just
example.
our key gateway
Yeah.
on McKnight.
The main roads.
McKnight
Yeah.
and Perry Highway North, at our boundary.
Rochester and
Just McKnight
Branch
and
School.
Perry Highway.
Don't they
Those are the
already-
only two that we've identified.
There's already signs, though, aren't there?
There might be one of the small marking signs, but that's.
Right, you're now entering your welcome to
Yeah, welcome to
McCandless.
Yeah,
McCandless.
but we're talking about, the idea here was to have maybe 6 feet, 8 feet wide.
Have you
7
not
feet
seen the
high.
nice signs that almost every community has? With it's lit up and it's usually stone and there's some landscaping around it and it looks friendly and happy and welcoming.
So are we going to have a design contest for these signs?
Like outside of King of Prussia, I can't remember the exact town name, but they have the letters of the town that are about 3 feet high, so they're really big, in the grass, the garden in front of it, so.
Yeah,
There's some
that'd
different
be another place for people to adopt
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
and really look
If,
good.
yeah, if they'll let us do it. We just have to figure out where we're gonna put the markers.
That's it. We've been carrying this money in the budget for years. It's time to either do it or don't do it. And I think we should do it.
Yeah. The other thing that, too, that we talked about, it didn't quite make the manager's report, is that, we have this money set aside for a sidewalk out here. But in watching this road a lot, there's probably, Toby and I were discussing this, there's probably one walker to every 99 cyclists that come down through here. And so what we were talking about doing, and did you have a chance to check in any numbers on that?
Well, the way it seems to be dovetailing is that Hashik in our steering committee.
I didn't finish my sentence. Let me finish my sentence, sorry. And what we were thinking about doing is maybe instead of a sidewalk there, actually extending the road. I think it would be cheaper, Toby's checking the numbers, and making a biking, walking, almost like what they have in the
8
park.
feet or so?
Right, and extend that instead of doing, so it would kind of serve the purpose of a sidewalk, but it would extend the road, because, bikes coming down that hill, I bike down that hill, we go pretty fast. You're not gonna jump up on the sidewalk. So maybe, depending on what you guys think about it, extending the road a little bit and making it a walking,
no
biking,
curb,
yeah, no curb kind of thing. And you were talking about, I'm sorry, I didn't finish my, go ahead.
This became such a significant aspect of the steering committee's work, that as to where the path that's gonna connect all the way from Pine Creek along Glacier, both sides of Glacier, and then is there gonna be a bikeway or a walkway? So the meeting that occurred last Wednesday focused a lot on this area as to which route would be taken, or two routes would be taken. The less preferred route seemed to be along Ingomar Road. The best preferred route was to bring the walking, biking trail along our frontage. So with that, I kind of waiting to see how popular that was with the steering committee. It seems to be gaining momentum and then to flesh this idea out. So that it's time for me to put that on the list to get.
Who would be responsible for widening the road?
Well, first of all, it'd be to have a feasibility of, there's a slope out there. So that's one of the things that the sidewalk we're gonna have difficulty with the sidewalk, is to bench the sidewalk in. We're looking at lowering it, not have the traditional sidewalk up by the road. Mark Sabino was attacking that. And Kim Zachary and I were talking about, maybe we ought to hold off, and then her idea came along with, maybe we should try to do more and see if we tier it, or what would we do? So a combination of Mark and our engineer ought to look at the feasibility out here at this point and see if there's something we ought
So
to
it would be our cost
Oh,
to
yeah.
do that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But we had already put money in the budget for a sidewalk out here. I can't imagine that it would be anything but less and serve a dual purpose, because we all are for sidewalks. And so it wouldn't be a we're all for pedestrian walkways.
Bill's
Maybe
not.
that doesn't have to be, no, I know Bill is. But it doesn't have to be a concrete, traditional sidewalk
With
for
a
people
curb.
to walk on. Yeah. So do you all like that idea for us to look at that and see how the numbers crunch with that? Okay. Okay, all right, thanks.
Toby, how are we doing with the junior council member? Are we getting applications?
We have one application, and the person that
The young lady?
introduced it to us said that she would be getting hers in, her actual application, and a third person has emailed us and said that I'm gonna be getting my application in shortly. Well, it's got a few more days.
I was gonna say,
So
21st.
we have one that has arrived and two that have expressed interest.
Okay.
Anything else? Any comments on the town manager's report from any of the citizens? Town attorney's report?
I did submit the standard monthly report with updates. Nothing really fit for public discussion, but if there's any questions or discussion required, we can do an executive session. Happy to answer those questions if they're out there.
I didn't have any questions. It was all clear, I thought. Well, good. Any public comment about anything? Anything we discussed tonight? Any additional public comment? Okay. All right, then, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You're adjourned.
Excuse me.